Hello and good night. My name is Margaret, and I am the host of the video podcast series Lifestyle by Design. My guest tonight is Pedro Jerez. Pedro, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, Margaret?
How are you doing?
Happy to be here. I'm doing outstanding. Happy to be.
Go ahead.
No, I'm doing outstanding. Happy to be here and looking forward to adding some value over the next couple of minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Pedro is in his local Starbucks. He was heading home, and he knew by the time that he got home, he would miss this interview. So he stopped, and he figured it out, and he made it happen. So I commend you for that. Just yesterday, I started and inspired you actually also one of my inspirations. I started my marathon training because I'd like to run in the 2016 New York City Marathon. And I realized that my day had started completely late. And I didn't know, where I was going to run, what time. I knew, I missed the morning, and I knew I had a project at work and I'd be late. So I emailed the guy who is working with me, he's coaching me on being able to finish this race. And I said, I guess I'll figure it out. And he said, yeah, this is a really great example of figuring things out because this is life and things happen. So just like you figured it out. So again, welcome and thank you for taking the time to be here. Pedro, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'll start with a story. I'll start with my personal story so you guys can get to know me. And I was telling you a little bit about this, Margaret, before we went live. It's so basically when I was 13, my obsession became literally to become the best filmmaker in the world. And that's all I thought about literally 24/7. And kind of how that manifested itself was this local community program for underprivileged kids. I was from the Bronx, and my family didn't have much. And these people said, we're going to pay for you to go on this outdoor experience, and here's a camera, record your experience. And what happened was that when I got back, they encouraged me actually to edit this experience. And what happened was over that summer, I literally became obsessed. And by the time the summer was over, I was teaching my instructors how to create films. And that eventually led to a journey where I was 17. My films kind of screened all around the United States. It was literally my passion, it was my love, it was my obsession. The only reason why I went to school was to create films in the first place. And of course, natural progression is that if you're so immersed into that world, you want to go to the best film school, which is USC, and you want to learn from the best. Which is Steven Spielberg. He was literally my idol, and I knew that he taught at USC. So basically, what happened next is, of course, I applied to USC, and 4 months later, I arrived home to a letter from USC, and I'm scanning for one word, Margaret, and it's the word accepted, and I'm looking, and I'm looking, and I'm looking, and eventually, I find it, and I'm like, scream at the top of my lungs, yes! I get into USC, and then I go and share the news with my dad. I'm like, Dad, look, I got in. Look, I told you I was going to do it. And after we celebrate, my dad says, how much is your scholarship? And he tells me, I tell him, no, I didn't get one. His response is, well, you should consider going to community college. And in that moment, my whole world stopped. Literally for the next 6 days, 6 episodes of Breaking Bad in 6 days. And then eventually that led to Prison Break and really dark shows for a really dark time in my life. And then one day my dad, he walks in and he looks like he was on a mission, literally. He walks straight down, his hands on the table, and he slams the table and he says, enough of this fucking shit. Because he saw that I was getting into a pattern. My dad was a really successful guy. And that moment I said, well, if I can't go to my dream school of USC, then I might as well go to a party school and have a good time. And at the time, the top party school was Ohio University. And for the second semester, I ended up going there. And literally 6 days into being at Ohio University, I'm just laying in my bed trying to find any kind of purpose for my life. and I stumbled upon a Tony Robbins video. And there's two things, but I'll say one right now that literally changed the quality of my life. And it simply said, if you empty your wallet into your mind would eventually fill up your wallet. And I listened to that, and it made sense because of being self-taught in film, I was like, well, maybe I can do that. And I literally felt so empty being at Howard University, away from my family, and not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. So literally an hour later, I call my dad up and I say, Dad, I'm taking my education in my own hands and I'm flying home.
Wow.
And the next day, I'm in New York City. I land in LaGuardia Airport, and as soon as I land, I take the train and then to the bus to East 86th Street, where I knew there was a Barnes & Nobles. And I had one credit card at the time, Margaret. And I walk into that Barnes & Nobles on a mission. And I max out my credit card, and I walk out of that thing with more books than I can carry. I mean, literally anything that I thought would change the quality of my life. And so it was anything from like psychology, health, fitness, relationships, communication, literally anything I thought would help me at the time. And I became obsessed. I literally started reading 14, 16 hours a day. And I wouldn't stop until one or two things happened. Either I fell asleep on my desk, or my mom said my eyes were going to fall off and she commanded I fell asleep. And that's exactly what I did all day. And I immersed myself. And that's kind of led to this whole lifestyle that I'm so blessed to live today. Traveling all around the world, being surrounded around literally some of the best thinkers in the world. And yeah, it's a short story.
It's a short story with lots of very important messages, lots of important lessons, not messages, excuse me. So tell me, why you said that you were feeling empty. Did you, when you decided that you were going to leave college and take your education into your own hands, was there any fear of, you know, the future? Like maybe you wouldn't be successful, or maybe you wouldn't get the type of job, or maybe you wouldn't, you know, do something in film that you wanted to? Was there that fear?
Yeah. My whole mindset at the time was that if I couldn't learn from the best, I might as well not learn at all. So as soon as I found out I couldn't go to USC, literally I felt like, since film meant so much to me and USC meant so much to me, like literally my world just came crashing down. And there's a test that I do today to find out whether I'm on track or not, to answer your question. I sit back sometimes and I say, how empty or full am I feeling in this moment? And you can tell usually if you're following your life's purpose by how empty you feel or how full you feel after taking a certain action. So after taking that action to go to Howard University, it was so far from what I was meant to do in my life, which was partying at the time, which was having a good time, which was going to places for the wrong reason, that I felt so empty, right? When I was actually living my purpose, I felt so full. And it's so obvious whether you're on the track or not, just simply by asking that simple question: how empty or full do I feel after taking this certain action? And I was more empty than full most of the time in my life. And that was a sign for me, like, I got to do something, because I was looking at all the people in my life suffering, and I was like, I don't want to live like this. And for me, it was a threshold of so much pain that I said, never again. And that was kind of like the shift for me, to actually be brave and take that step. And that's not to receive more challenges after that, because things actually got a lot worse after I made that decision.
Tell me about it.
It was a step in the right.
What happened after you made that decision? I wanted you to tell me about what happened after you made that decision. You were obviously in a stage where you were very thirsty and searching, and you were developing your own personal philosophy. You were coming to that. But tell me, how did it get worse?
Yeah, so I feel like people use education, specifically university, bachelor's and master's and PhDs, at least parents especially, they justify that for not doing anything in your life. So because I'm in college, maybe I'm not supposed to be creating things, okay, right? Because I'm in college, I'm not supposed to have an income. right? But because all of a sudden I decided to take my education in my own hands, people to criticize me because I was on the journey. So 1 year later, I still find myself with $20 in my name. I only have $20 in my name. And everyone's like, well, I told you that wouldn't work. I told you you need to go back to school. I told you would never be anybody. Of course you need that college degree. You know, like after 1 year, I'm supposed to be rich and famous, right? And I found that so funny. And it reveals people's true colors, or more than anything, I guess, like their threshold level and how much they believe in themselves and whether they think they're on a journey or not. And so just having that constant criticism, for one, was tough. So my family was constantly criticizing me. Literally, the people closest to me told me that I was never going to amount to anything. That if I didn't go to college, I wasn't going to be anybody. And then from there on, and then little by little, my friends started finding out, like, oh, you dropped out of college. And in school, I was like, in high school, I was like, I would never drop out of college. If you drop out of college, you're dumb. And all of a sudden, I dropped out of college. So that was really interesting. And so it was all these moments, and I'll tell you one moment specifically, I'll tell you two, that literally shaped my character. So my dad, he used to give me on a consistent basis, he used to give me $20 right after he left the house. He left $20 for me, make sure I get something to eat. And I never got something to eat with those $20, never. When I was home, I found something in the fridge. Even if I didn't want to eat it, I ate it, and I stopped, and I felt terrible after it, but I ate it. But in high school, I was always a runner, right? So I was like, well, let me use these legs, right? And what I would do is, with those $20, I was already in the cycle of like just consuming information. With those $20, I would literally run 7 miles to the bookstore. And with those same $20, I would buy one book. And of course, I had to choose the paperback because the hardcover was too expensive for me. And then I would run 7 miles back home, and I would read that book with a huge smile on my face because I knew that all hours of his life, 3 years of his life, or even more in some cases, to write that thing in his lifetime, to literally master that information. So I said, if I can get what he knows that he spent literally his whole life learning in just a couple of days or even a day. So at the time, I was reading a book a day, if not more. And I said, well, then I'm going to do it. And I'll give you another story that kind of helped me break through. A year later, after I decided to drop out of school, I ended up running the New York City Marathon. And there was this guy named Craig. Craig was like, literally this guy who changed my life and told me that I can do things. And he believed in me when no one believed in me. At 13, he looked me in the eyes and he said, you're going to be somebody. The first person to ever tell me that outside of my direct family. We have this charity spot to run the New York City Marathon. Are you interested? And right away I said yes, not knowing that the most I ever ran at 2 miles. And so, and the race, literally the race is 2 months. The race is in 2 months. So I started training for this thing, and I show up at the starting line, and I'm super excited.
Did you know at that point that it was 26.2 miles?
It took me about a week to figure that out.
Okay.
It took me about a week to figure that out, but I was like, I committed. I can't quit now. And it was so funny. He told me, he was like, you still have time to drop out if you want to. I was like, no, I'm not dropping out.
Wow.
High babe personality. I show up at the starting line, and I'm super excited for this thing. And the New York City Marathon, whoever hasn't run it, it's like a party, from mile 1 to basically the whole entire race. Bands are playing, people are screaming your name. And I made sure I put my name with a piece of tape right in front, and it said Pedro. So all these random people that don't even know are calling my name. I'm like, yeah! And I found like this reserve of energy I didn't even have before. And so I'm running this thing, right? And of course, it's all gravy. I'm dancing, from mile 1 to mile 16. And at mile 16, especially in the New York City Marathon, for newcomers, on this thing. So always there's this thing called the wall. And the wall is basically when your whole body shuts down, and mentally you have to make a decision whether you're going to keep on running or not. And at mile 16, I literally shut down. I almost wanted to cry. But mentally, I keep on going, not because I possess like some special physical talent or anything like that, but more of like because I had a why. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So I literally crunched my teeth from mile 16 to mile 20. And when I get to mile 20, the people that I was running for were standing there to the right. And there's where this group of kids, literally I was staring at myself when I was 13. This kid with no vision from this underprivileged neighborhood. And now these random people came into my life and told me, you're going to be somebody. And not only did they tell me that, but then they actually followed through and executed and actually put the right people in my life for me to actually to be able to live that dream.
Wow. And
put me in all these different experiences that I would never had before. So I'm crunching my teeth to mile 20, and there I see my why. And Margaret, what happened after, just to connect the dots, from mile 20 to mile 26, I end up running those last 6 miles faster than I ran the first 16 miles when I had fresh legs. Because I had a burning desire to finish now. Because I had a why. I had something bigger than myself that was going to get me over the edge. See, I had you were going to have to literally pull me off the race for me to quit after that. Because it was too big. I knew what I had done with my life. Like, if it wasn't for them, I would have probably been on drugs right now. I would have probably been selling drugs. I would have probably been hanging out with the wrong people. And so many of my friends who I grew up with, that's what they're doing right now. Friends. And then, so I'm at this point in my life, I only have $20 to my name, and I'm investing those $20 in books. And I started finding all these metaphors in my life, Margaret, like the marathon, all these reasons that I had to quit, all these people telling me to quit, my body telling me to quit. But then within all those reasons to quit, I kept on finding reasons to keep on going. And I kept on looking back and connecting the dots to all these stories in my life that made no sense at all, but made all the reason for who I am today. So that's just one example.
Tell me, Pedro, about the man that you are today.
Who am I today? It's a great question. It's a great question. And really what I stand for is to give more than I can ever receive. If I had to sum up my life and what I stand for in one sentence, it's to give more value, to give, just to give in general, whether it's my resources, my time, in ways that make sense for my life and that are going to maximize other people's life. That's really just what God put on my heart, and that's literally all I think about every single day. How am I going to help the person that I know is going through this? And ever since I was a little boy, I just hate people suffering. I hate to stand people suffering. Because when I was 9 years old, for a long time, I convinced myself this was my only memory. And it was basically my dad walking out. And here's this 9-year-old boy hugging onto his dad's leg as he's walking out the door, looking up at him, crying, bawling out his eyes, saying, "Dad, don't go. Dad, don't go. Dad, don't go." And that brought so much pain to my life, and it affected me in so many ways to the point where I became really good at things and I would never finish. And so much pain that I caused people that I couldn't, I had so many friends. And the reason I had so many friends was because I couldn't commit to friends past a certain standpoint because I thought they were going to hurt me.
Okay.
And I experienced this level of pain. In all these different areas in my life, and I caused so much pain to so many people that I said, I don't want anyone else to ever feel what I.
Not sure if you can hear me, but the audio went out. Hello? The audio went out if you can't hear me. Hello? Testing. I'm not sure if anyone can hear me. But the audio went out. Such are the technical difficulties of virtual interviews. So while we see what's happening with Pedro, maybe he will log back in. So, and I can give a little backstory about Pedro until he gets back. Pedro is okay, it dropped. So Pedro Jerez we're in a group together, a Tony Robbins group, and Pedro, we're also friends on Facebook. And that's actually where we met, on Facebook. He puts out a lot of very inspiring posts, posts about lots of his posts have to do with himself, challenging himself physically. The marathon, he talked about swimming. I remember there was once a very revealing post about him swimming and almost drowning and his friends laughing at him. And I'm testing right now because I'm testing to see if anyone can hear me. So I'm texting one of the viewers to make sure that you guys aren't just seeing me and my mouth going and not hearing me. I can actually do that in the chat room. Pedro is back. Pedro, we lost you for a little bit, but you're back.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. I mean, these things happen. It's technology. It's not perfect, but it gets better. So you were telling me, do you remember where you left off?
Yeah, I mean, just in a sentence. Sorry?
No, I didn't say anything. I was listening.
Yeah, just in a sentence, really, just to sum up that last part that I was talking about. It's really what I stand for is to give more than I can ever receive. I really believe the secret to life is really giving. And if you live a life of service, it's impossible to live in suffering state, as I call it. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So Pedro, you are the master of influence. Can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. It's really simple. At this time in my life where I was literally just growing and just surrounding myself around all these people, I met this guy named Tony Robbins, who now I have the privilege of working with and co-creating with. He told me, he said, Pedro, the number one skill that you can learn and master in your lifetime is influence. He said it doesn't matter what you want to do in your lifetime. If you master a skill named influence, you would never have to work for anyone for the rest of your life. Wow. Right? And it doesn't matter if you want to be the best mom in the world. It doesn't matter if you want to be the best dad in the world. You have to influence your child to do something, right? And as a parent, of course, we have their best interest at heart. So we have to be able to influence them to do certain things, right? If you're in sales, right, you definitely have to be able to influence people to take a certain action. If you're just talking to your friend and you just want to influence them, and influence doesn't always mean getting somebody to do what you want them to do. Influence simply means you get people to make a decision. There's so many people that don't make decisions in their life, and because then they're always like, oh, why do things always happen to me? Well, I wonder why, right? So influence is, for me, it's allowed me to connect and meet people that was literally just a pipe dream for me. And I tell this part in my story. I say I knew my life had changed when I was literally surrounded by about. And those are the people who I'm fortunate enough to literally have in my life almost on a daily basis today. And the only reason why those people are in my life is because I was able to influence my way there. I was able to influence my life to get the right people around me so that I can attract those people in my life. And so it's literally, if you had to ask me what's the most important skill you can learn in your lifetime, it's influence. And it's literally changed my life. It's changed my relationship with my mother. Always trying to be right in all these different things. And only by truly understanding influence, do you really start to suck the juice out of life with the people in it. And at the end of the day, when you look back at your life, that's all you have. And for me, it's like I was literally gonna live my every single day like it was the last day I had. And if that's really true, then I said I'm gonna master this thing. And it's literally blessed my life. It's literally taken me from a really small apartment to literally living all around the world. It's taken me to not knowing whether I was going to be able to eat today to literally eating wherever I want to eat. You know, it's literally taken me to travel to all places I want to travel to. I influenced my way to the lifestyle that I wanted to create for my life. And that's why I say, one, I'm the master of influence, and two, and I can say that with certainty also because I've been able to produce the results financially that have also allowed me to create it today. So, and none of that would be possible without this one word, influence.
How did you begin your journey to mastering influence? If there's somebody who's looking and listening to what you say, they want to do that too. They want all these things. How do they begin that journey?
Yeah, it's really simple. It's the same way I master any skill. It's a great question, and I'll make it relevant to anybody. If you guys want to learn how to be a ballerina, if you want to learn how to be a baseball player, if you want to learn how to be the best parent you can be, if you want to learn how to be the best bartista you can be, since I'm sitting in Starbucks, I think it's relevant. Whatever you want to do in life, it's really the same exact process. And so number one is find somebody who's already done what you want to do. I think if you try to figure out everything on your own, that's going to be a slow, very painful route, right? It's going to take you 10 times as long to learn something as if you literally just found who's the best in the world. And maybe not the best in the world. Maybe you're not even interested in being the best. Maybe you're just interested in living a good life, which is awesome too. Just find somebody who's actually really good at whatever it is you want to learn and go to them directly. And sometimes that means books. In my case, when I was growing up, now I have the fortune to actually meeting those people, right? But and then what you start to do is you start to look for patterns, right? So I can read 10 books on relationships, but I find patterns, things that are similar to all these great thinkers, and I just write them down. I'll read for 30 minutes, or I'll hang out with this person for an hour. And then what I'll do is as soon as I'm done with that transaction, with that conversation, with that book, I'll literally just sit down and write down everything I can remember. And I'll do that for all these different areas of my life. And then I'll start finding patterns that connect. And then I also do this thing called space learning, where I'll immerse myself. Because a lot of us, how many of us haven't learned a language in high school or in college or at some point in our life? But how many of us can actually still speak that language? Not many of us, right? So, and the reason why that's because we're always dabbling in all these different things. Say, oh, I want to learn this. Oh, I want to do this today. Oh, I want to do this today. Oh, I want to do this today. And you never really truly attain any mastery, right? Mm-hmm. And really, when you start to become a master of something, that's when really all this fruit starts to come in your life. And remember, it's a fruit, so it needs to grow, right? And what that means is that you need to be patient with it, right? So just because now you have this new mindset, just because you're doing the work now, don't think that by next month you're going to be a master at it. But guess what? You're on the journey, you're on the path, and you're actually putting in the work. Don't mistake activity for actually results. So you have to immerse yourself. Choose a time frame. Is that going to be 21 days? Is that going to be 30 days? Is that going to be 60 days? Is that going to be a week? Is that going to be a day? Choose a certain time frame where maybe it's for 30 minutes a day, or maybe if you're just getting started, maybe it's 10 minutes a day, or maybe if you really want to go all in on this thing, maybe it's 2 hours a day, and you literally just immerse yourself in that subject. Who are the top leaders that you want to learn about in that subject? For me, when it came to influence, I found a couple of people who I thought, just based off a couple of Google searches and people who I thought were credible, making recommendations, and I bought every single book on who these people are, or I found a course that can really simplify it for me, or I bought an online course that allowed me to actually do these things from home, especially when I'm traveling and all these different things that serve my lifestyle. And so from immerse yourself, right? And then from there, you got to space learn. And what space learning is basically, so if you immerse yourself for 21 days, which I think should be the absolute minimum, from there, you would give it a week, 2 weeks, or maybe a month, and then you'll come and revisit the subject for a day or two where you immerse yourself again to revisit it. Because now you're anchoring it in your brain at a much deeper level than you were doing before. And it's like a muscle, right? So you're doing it for 21 days, you're working the muscle, you're working the muscle, you're working the muscle, but you gotta let that muscle rest, right? You let it rest, you let it recover, and then you come back. And then you immerse yourself again, but for a much shorter period of time.
Okay.
And then when you do that, that's when things get really exciting. So that's an easy way you can do things on your own. You can learn literally any skill. You can literally become a novice to an expert in anything you want to learn in as short as 21 days. And then from there, if you want to take it, a step further, I would even say go out and find a coach, find somebody who can keep you accountable to actually doing these things. Find somebody who is gonna, it's not just athletes who have coaches. I see the top parents in the world, who are the not only the top parents, also the top people who just want to take care of their body. It's usually really obvious. Usually people who have coaches have better bodies than people who don't have coaches. I wonder why. It's so funny to me that people don't think of these things. It could be about your spirit, right? So does that mean you immerse yourself in a church? Does that mean do you have a pastor you can ask questions, or when you have questions about the Bible, if that's what you believe in, right? And also on top of that, so now you have the stuff you can do on your own, which could be books, which could be audio tapes, which could be online courses, right? You also have a coach now to keep you accountable to the process, who's not going to let you slack. Because there's so many people in our lives who are gonna, they're gonna say all these different things. They're gonna say, "I got your back," and all these different things. And the moment you slack, they say, "Oh, don't worry about it. You'll get it back tomorrow." I say, "No. Why do you not do it today? What's going on there? Let's finish the problem today, so tomorrow you can go back to being to who you really want to be,
wow.
Right?" And then the third step is really a live immersive experience, right? This is if you really want to true mastery. You can do it on your own, which I did when I didn't have any money, and I was committed to the process. That's why I was able to make it work, right? But if you want to really obtain true mastery, those are the 3 steps towards doing it. And then the thing I'm gonna add, Margaret, is just things that you can do every single day to live in beautiful states and become the person you want to be. It's a 5-step process. It's really simple. It's one, you got to do something for your mind every single day. Because if you don't do something for your mind, if you're not the guardian of the gate to your mind, somebody else will grab you. You see TV does it all the time. You see friends want to call you about their problems. You see people want to literally grab your attention from all these different places. So you have to hold the gate to your mind. And one of my mentors, his name was Jim Ron. He's dead now, but he says, miss a meal, but don't miss your reading. He says, miss a meal, but don't miss your reading. And the reason why he says that is because your mind, it just, whoever wants your attention is going to grab it unless you hold the gate to your mind. Step 2 is you got to do something for your body every single day. Fear is physical, Margaret, right? Think about it. Every time you're fearful, where do you feel it?
In your body.
Where do you feel it? Usually
in your body.
Right? Fear is physical. So you got to do something for your body. If you do something for your body every single day and you start to train it like a muscle, you can start literally to grab almost fear by its neck and direct it in the directions you want to go to, right? So every single time I'm fearful, I just do something explosive in my body and I'm back. And my brain now is in charge opposed to this fear, right? Which is not even real, it's an illusion. And this thing, again, like we just talked about, get a coach. And the 4th thing is proximity. Who are you surrounded around, right? And if you look at, you've heard this old saying, but it's so true. who are the top 5 people you hang around. You know, those are the people who chances are you have similar bank accounts, you have similar bodies, probably have similar skin. You know, you have all these different things that are similar, and you don't even realize it. And it's really that powerful. And the last thing is find a way to give every day. Find a way to do something for someone else. And really, those are 5 simple steps that someone can literally decide to do today to take control of their life, where maybe they didn't have control before.
Okay. So Pedro, I want to get inside your head a little bit, because you seem to really immerse yourself in whatever it is you're learning. You do this in athletics, you do it, you know, influence you just talked about, and you really want to give a value. You've taken your life to a whole nother level, and you talked about the possibilities that have opened up to you and the lifestyle that you're currently living, which is a lifestyle that you created. Tell me, what did you have to let go of to step into that?
For one is fear. And that's not to say that you can never let go of fear. What you can do is manage fear. And what I mean by that is this: fear only comes from 2 places. It's one, it's that you're not enough. And Margaret, if you're not enough, then you're not going to be loved. And that's the old fear. All right, that you're not going to be loved by the people around you, that you're not going to be loved by your family, from your friends, from, God forbid, your children don't love you. Oh my God, right? That is serious. Yeah. And so people have this illusion, this illusion of fear, because it's not even real. I mean, really, what we're fearful about, think about all the things that we're fearful about, are usually things that haven't even happened yet. They're usually things that we anticipate are going to happen. Now, there are some very real fears. Maybe you have a cliff and you have to jump, and but it's an illusion. Think about it. If I was going to go bungee jumping right now, what am I fearful of? Right? I know that the bungee cord is gonna bring me up, right? But I'm fearful that it's gonna break, or I'm fearful if I take this leap, it's not gonna bring me back up. It's not even that. It's not even that I'm taking the jump. So it's this illusion of things that haven't happened yet. So one, again, how I manage fear is, again, by doing something for my body all the time. Because this thing of fear is physical. And so every single time I'm fearful, I just make my move, right? Or I just do something. I do something that's gonna get my blood flowing. That's gonna get my brain to stop thinking about that and refocus it to do what I wanted to do. And it's not something that if you do once, it's gonna happen. But if you do it over and over and over again, then guess what? You start to become the driver of your mind. You start to become the driver of your fear. And that's when things get exciting. So it's repetition. It's repetition. Repetition is the mother of skills. All these things are going to sound simple, and you'll probably apply them tomorrow, and these people listening are going to apply them tomorrow. But if you don't do them again consecutively, then you're never going to reap the reward of what it means to actually live a life of living in beautiful states, which I think is the ultimate outcome. It's not this thing of having all this ton of money, which I think is important, and I love money. Believe me, it's allowed me to do all these different things, but it's not about that. And when you can manage your fear, when you can stand gate of your mind, when you can surround yourself around the right people, when you have a coach, that you start to almost build a fail-proof formula for not being fearful anymore. And that's basically what I've done. So one for sure is managing my fear.
Okay. So tell me, how can a person become unstuck? If somebody is, very cloudy, there's no clarity, everything is smoke, and, they can't see, they're not sure what they want, how can they get past that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love when people tell me they don't know what they want. I get so excited when I'm surrounded by someone who's asking that question. You have no idea, like this huge smile just comes on my face, and I'm like, yes, I've been waiting for you. And because it's usually what directs your focus is basically the questions that you're consistently asking yourself.
Okay.
And the reason why, I'll give you an example. What if I say, Guys, don't think of the color blue. Blue, 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 blue. Think of the color brown. Where's brown? Right? You're going to be thinking about the color blue, right? So that's what people do when they say, oh, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I say, okay, great. I think it's fantastic that you don't know what to do with your life, but I say, well, what if you did know? I mean, what if what you had to do with your life? What if you had to know what you would be passionate about? Well, what made it be? Like, I get that you don't know what it is, but if you had to know, what would it be? And then all of a sudden, they come up with a brilliant answer. And then I reinforce it, and automatically this huge grin on their face comes, and like, oh my God. And all of a sudden, they've like tapped into this passion that they thought was so far away or so far-fetched, and they thought they would never discover. And usually it's not that they don't know what they want to do, it's that they usually have fear about what they want to do because they don't know how they're going to do it. So for me, when I find someone like that, is ask a better question. Ask a better question. For anyone who's stuck, it's about asking quality questions, right? So for me in the morning, like I don't leave my focus up to chance. I have a morning routine where I ask myself these 5 different questions, focus on my day towards my true purpose. So I can't be fearful. And if fear comes in my life, then I'm just going to ask a different question and redirect my focus. And focus is always comes back to the questions that you're asking. If you're stuck, it's because you're asking non-quality questions, right? If things are going really well, it's because you're asking better questions. So what's the primary question of your life? Are you asking why things always happen to you? Is that the question you're always asking, right? And that's the question most people are always asking, you know? Or are you asking what's the perfection of God in this moment right now? What if you focused on that question instead? How many problems would you actually have in your life? You would always find the perfection of God in that moment, right? So to answer your question, for anyone who's stuck, the reason why they're stuck is because they're asking non-quality questions. The reason why someone's doing well and the reason why they're thriving is because they have a primary question that's empowering their life. So what I would encourage everyone to do is find out what's your primary question. What's the question that you ask more than any other question in your whole entire life? And then from there, I would say, okay, cool. Is this the question that I should be asking? Is this the ultimate question that's going to get me to live the lifestyle that I truly want? Is this the question that taps me closest to my core? Is this the question that's going to allow me to live in beautiful states all the time? And if it's not, then, well, maybe we should rewrite that question, write something that's more empowering, and get in the habit of asking that question every single day to direct our focus and stand gate of our mind so then that we can start living a quality life.
So what are some good questions that one can ask themselves? One can ask him or herself.
Yeah, I mean, it literally could be anything, Margaret. I think people make the mistake of like trying to find the exact formula. I think there's definitely some universal things, but I don't think that the right question, I don't think my question is going to be the best for everyone. But I'll give you a couple of examples. Like one of my primary questions is, I always say, what's the perfection in this moment? How can I enjoy the perfection of God in this moment even more? So my whole life could be turning around and I'm always looking for the perfection. Or I always say, what else can this mean? What else could this mean? And by asking that question, I'm always looking for other reasons that are empowering, for other questions that are going to empower my life, for other positive meaning. And usually it takes a couple of times of asking that question before I suck the juice out of it. And then all of a sudden you start, I mean, that's probably one of my favorite ones that I think that everyone can use. It's like, what else could this mean? Because there's always in life, there's always going to be things that are going to challenge you. There's always, it doesn't matter how far you get, there's always going to be a moment where you can use that question of what else could this mean? And you'll see there's always an empowering meaning to every single moment in your life, no matter when you think your whole life's turning upside down. By asking that simple question, it can, get you your focus back and allow you to actually be of service in that moment opposed to in this negative state.
Okay. So, I have a question here from Mike, and I'll take a question now. It says, if you could sit down with anyone dead or alive and just pick their brain, who would it be?
That's a great question. it would have to be between two people, and one of them I actually have the privilege of actually doing that. Um, and for me, it's my hero. My hero is Tony Robbins. Uh, before I met Tony, he was like my dad, but he really didn't know he was my dad yet. So, I mean, I must have read his material and listened to his material probably 10 times each. I wrote his books by hand. I literally would scream his books out at the top of my lung while jumping on my rebounder at home. To say it was an understatement that I valued his material and the values added to my life would be an understatement. And for a long time, that's why I went to work for Tony for a while. Was because I said it was going back to this whole idea of modeling. I said I'm going to save myself decades of pain by learning what this man knows. And I mean, he's literally changed my life more than solely any other person in this world. From my relationships, intimate and non-intimate, to how I carry myself, how I've been able to master this thing called influence. And when I say master, does not mean I'm not growing, because I'm still learning, and I'm going to continue to learn. Literally every single area of my life. I mean, this man has literally added massive value to my life, and I continue. And one of the reasons why I'm moving to Florida, why I bought a one-way ticket to Florida, was so I can spend more time with him and continue to pick his brain. And because he's always growing, and if I always want to grow, I want to be able to tap into what he knows. And I guess the other person that I would love to learn more about is a man named Elon Musk. And you may have heard of him or you may have not. I don't know if you guys can see my video or not.
No, your video went out, but we can hear you clearly.
Great. So Elon Musk, after Tony, I think he's probably the guy who has changed my mindset more than anything.
Okay.
And even though he's a businessman, I think that mindset goes into my relationships, into what I think is possible. Okay. And no matter how amazing things are, I'm like, how can I serve this woman even more? How can I get even deeper into her soul? And Elon Musk basically, he started this company named Tesla, which you may have heard of. He also started this company called SpaceX, which is the company that wants to go to Mars. He also started a company called PayPal, which I'm sure you guys have heard of. And he also started a company called SolarX, which is basically moving to sustainable energy. And what he thinks is possible and what other people think is possible are on two different levels. And just to know that someone thinks like that, and to know that I'm not crazy to think like that, and to know that no matter how awesome things are, I can still serve someone at a higher level. I can still love this woman at a higher level. I can still create more for my business. I can still do things that people thought were impossible. Doesn't matter what it is. There's another level. I think there's a bolder you that you can bring to every single situation. And I think if there was anything that man has taught me, it's that. And I've only learned that by listening to interviews and reading his books. But I would love to sit down with him one day, and I'm believing that I will.
I believe that you will too. Let's see, there is. Okay, and the other question is a little similar, but it says, if you can work with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, I'll add this first part. I say I always like to think alive, just because this way it's actually more likely to happen.
Okay.
And that brings me a little bit more joy, to know that it may happen. If I can work with anyone. Well, there's this other guy named Peter Diamandis that I love, or even Deepak Chopra.
Okay.
And the reason why I mention those two guys is because, outside of business, which is what I spend a lot of time thinking about and working on, and building. Another area of my life that I want to master is this idea of my spirit, how connected to God I am on a day-to-day basis, how every single action in my life has purpose. And I think that a life of purpose is a life connected to what I like to call God. You know, you can call it your creator, you can call it whatever you want. And if I can tap into that more often and literally have every single moment in my life mean something, like nothing be by coincidence, nothing be just because it happened. Every single my moment is divine, and that every single moment in my life has a purpose. I think that's really my ultimate outcome in life. And if I can move closer to that on a day-to-day basis, it would literally mean ultimate joy. And Deepak Chopra is one of those really amazing spiritual teachers in the world, probably the best in the world on that understanding, and not only understanding, but being able to communicate it to people in a way that they actually understand the information. And you know, I would love to work with him or work for him at some point, or maybe just collaborate on a project, just so I can just maybe tap in a little bit to what he knows and what he understands, so that I can bring that forward to the world and be able to serve people at a higher level and bring more joy and beautiful states into my life.
He does some work with Tony, doesn't he, at Date with Destiny? I think I've seen him on a lineup before down there.
He actually teaches at Tony's Life Mastery course.
Life Mastery, sorry.
Yeah, at Tony's Life Mastery course.
Ah, so see, you may have a chance. I'm sure that you will meet him.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, that's more in your realm, so you might be able to speed things up there. So how did you meet Tony?
Yeah.
And what was it like meeting him for the very first time?
I guess it's relevant to tell you the story how actually there's a story. Actually, I'll start with this. Because I mean, my life is literally, everything that I have the privilege of living today came because I learned from a thought leader, and I just found the courage to pick up the book and actually read it. I mean, books literally changed my life. I mean, if you guys haven't taken a speed reading course before, go and take it and read more books, because it will literally change your life. And I've read this book. I don't remember anything from the book but this one sentence, and it said, if you're going to work to learn, don't work to work. If you're currently in a position where you're just working, quit your job and find something where you can actually learn. And I said, if I'm going to actually learn from someone, it's going to be Tony Robbins. And I had heard the story about a man named Les Brown, who's also one of my heroes. And Les Brown tells a story about him trying to be a disc jockey. And a disc jockey, for you guys that don't know, it's basically this person who wants to be a radio TV host. And so he walks into this radio station and he says, he meets this guy. His name is Mr. Butterballs. He runs the whole entire station. And he says, hey, Mr. Butterballs, I want to be a disc jockey. Are you guys hiring? And Mr. Butterballs says, well, kid, do you have any experience as a disc jockey? And Les says, well, not really. I just want to learn this stuff. And I was hoping that you can actually give me the opportunity. And Mr. Butterball says, well, we're not hiring. Get out of here. You have no experience. So he walks out. But fortunately, he had this teacher, which was his mentor at the time. And he tells Les, some people are so negative that they have to say no 10 times before they say yes. So Les walks in. He goes back to the radio station. And he says, he goes in like he met him for the first time. He says, hey, Mr. Butterballs, are you guys hiring any disc jockeys? And he says, didn't I just see you yesterday and tell you that we're not hiring any disc jockeys? And he says, well, I just wanted to know whether somebody quit or somebody died. And so, and so he goes, and he knows that people have to say no 10 times. So he goes back again. And he did this a couple of times, and eventually after like the fourth or fifth time, Mr. Butterballs, he got pissed off, and he says, "Go get me some coffee." And then there was something else in that one sentence that really stood out to me, and I'll relevant. Les says, "It's better to not have an opportunity and be prepared than to have an opportunity and not be prepared." I'll say that one more time.
Yeah.
It's better to not have an opportunity and be prepared than to have an opportunity and be prepared and not be prepared.
Okay.
So, so what happened was Leslie started off as an assistant. He was getting people's coffee, and eventually started trusting him, and he started driving, all the celebrities that used to come into the radio station. What's crazy about the story, he says he didn't have a license, but he just stepped up to the plate. And so he kept on doing all these crazy things. And then one day there was this disc jockey who was drinking on the radio. And Mr. Butterballs calls Les because he was the only person at the station, and he says, "Do you see Rock, who was the disc jockey? He's drinking on the air." He said, "Yeah, I see that he's drinking." He says, "Hey, call one of the other disc jockeys to come in. We got to get him off the air right away." And he says, "No problem, I'll call you right back." And Les, what he does, he calls his mom and he calls his girlfriend. And he says, "Guys, come on the front porch. I'm about to go on the air." And just 20 minutes later, he calls Mr. Butterballs and he says, "Hey, I called everybody and no one can come." And he says, "Hey, boy, do you know how to use the controls?" He says, "Yes." And then Les says, then Mr. Butterballs says, "Okay, cool. Go in there and don't touch anything. Cool?" He says, "All right, awesome." He hangs up. He gets Rock out of there. He goes on the station and he starts going on a rant literally for like a minute or 2 minutes, just literally making this unforgettable introduction that they actually gave him his own radio show.
Wow.
And the reason why that story is relevant is because when I said I'm going to work for Tony, I didn't know whether they were hiring. I didn't know what was available. I didn't know, I wasn't qualified by any means to, represent and perform at a high level at that company. So I ended up just applying and just saying what I think I can do for the company. And of course, I don't hear back. In my mind, the story is I'm not qualified. And, I just keep on going back. I had heard the story about Les Brown, and I just keep on reaching out. And 90 days later to the date, I receive a phone call. After probably mailing at least 30 letters, after probably calling 50 times, and after probably emailing at least 50 times, I received a phone call from the director of sales, and she calls me back and says, "Oh, we want to schedule an interview with you." I was like, "I know." we had an interview, and we actually, after 3 interviews later, I got hired. But going back to the second part that I said about the opportunity, I got hired at the time. I was 20 years old at the time.
Wow.
I was only 20 at the time. Young, hungry, ambitious, and stupid. So I 3 interviews later, I got hired, and I just started off as an assistant. And what happened was, I knew if I got my foot in the door, I was going to perform.
Okay.
And 1 year later, I got promoted 3 times, and now I have the privilege of being a national speaker for Tony Robbins, and actually be the face of what he does outside of the actual live events. And there's only 5 people in the entire company who have the privilege of saying that. So,
wow.
I mean, it was a journey of just being persistent, and just one of my mentors, he calls it pig-headed discipline. Just like knowing what you want, going after it, and just having. I mean, people don't know what they don't know. You just got to go after it. And some people need to say no 30 times, but guess what? Eventually they'll say yes. And if you really believe that, then, the first rejection doesn't really mean nothing to you. All it means is opportunity. It means growth to you. And that's what it means to me. And that's how I got there. And then now it's given me the opportunity to be on multiple stages and, speak to thousands of people and able to impact people in a way that was only a pipe dream, but now it's becoming a reality. And now that vision is starting to expand into something bigger. But I feel privileged to do what I do every single day, and I love it.
That is freaking amazing. It is absolutely awesome. It reminds me of when I was a little younger. I used to work in the music industry, and I started out working at Bad Boy. And I remember at the time I was debating between Bad Boy and Def Jam with Russell Simmons. And I just knew I had this conviction that I was going to work for either one of them. And I remember I would call the Bad Boy office and I would dial like all the different extensions. And there was this one particular extension that every time I called it, somebody would pick up. And at the time, this guy, we're still friends, his name is Mark. He would pick up and he would just entertain my questions. And we developed this phone relationship. And one day I called and he was like, hey, we have an internship available. Come on down. It wasn't in marketing. It was in another department. And I ended up getting the position as an intern. And it was a pretty big position. I mean, it wasn't like a real internship because Bad Boy, it was hot, but the company was still small. And I ended up taking on a lot of responsibility. Right. But at the same time, I got an interview to be an intern for Russell's assistant. Her name was Simone. And they offered me that internship also. So here I was, no contacts, no family, nothing but just drive. I knew that I was going to land a position working at one of these companies. And like you know, I had this hunger and this drive and I saw it, you know, and here I was, there were both of them. And I was like, oh my God, which one do I choose? And I went with Bad Boy because I felt at that time they were hot, you know, they were doing a lot more than Def Jam. You know, Def Jam had longevity and they had a roster and artists, but I went with Bad Boy and I didn't look back after that, you know. But you telling that story reminded me of my experience. You know, when it's like you said, it's young and stupid. And there's some people who say, you know, you stay young and stupid, you know, and that's what it means. It means not taking no for an answer, you know. So yeah. I commend you for that. You know, it's very admirable.
I want to leave you guys with this. Just going back to influence and how, I mean, literally everything I have today is because I was able to master this one skill. And part of that is owning your personal story. Your personal story is the most important thing you have. I'll give you an example. You said me sharing that story reminded you of that story. If I want to remind you of your mom or your dad or someone in your life, all I have to do is talk about someone in my life all I have to do is talk about my mom. All I have to do is talk about my dad. All I have to talk about is my friends. If I want to remind you of your dreams, all I have to talk about is my dreams. And immediately I take you to your dreams, right? So this idea of your personal story and building rapport with people, literally the most important thing you have in this lifetime in terms of influence people is your own personal story and owning it. I mean, for some reason, in this world, in this culture that we have today, people think that by being vulnerable, you're being weak. People who know me would say I'm probably one of the most vulnerable people they know. And the reason why I do that is because the moment I am vulnerable, it's the moment I have rapport, it's the moment I have leverage, it's the moment I have a connection with the person in front of me. Everyone wants to be so cool, and that's why they're so dual, and they have no connection and no real juice in life.
Okay.
And I mean, literally just this idea of just like telling your story wherever you're at. Your personal story is the most important thing you have. And if you just get in the habit of if you guys remember nothing else, if you just tell your personal story often enough, be willing to mess up and just tell it often enough, you'll see the people who will start to come in your life. You'll see the doors that will start to open. You would see all these different things that you thought were just a pipe dream start to open up in your life because you started to share your story. I went my whole life thinking my personal story wasn't important until a couple of years ago. I shared it for the first time in front of 20 people, and all 20 of them started to cry. That was not my intention.
Wow.
Right? My intention was not to make anyone cry. My intention was simply just to tell my story and to tell people that your story matters. And that was the outcome. And not one soul moved because I
Wow.
was so genuine. I was being vulnerable. And when people are vulnerable, they know when people are being real. They know when people are being fake, and they dismiss you right away. You can be having a
That's
conversation with
true.
somebody, but they're thinking about a million things. When you go deep quickly, and you share your personal story, you'll see the world is yours, and you'll see even for your existing relationships, you'll see how those things will start to grow and things will start to manifest. I mean, no matter in your relationship, you'll see how that will start to go to a whole nother level. There's nothing that you have that's more important than your personal story. And if you master one thing, let it be your personal story, because you'll see the things that will start to come into your life, and everything else will fall into place if you're committed. So, yeah.
That was powerful. It's true. That's actually how I connected with you, reading your Facebook post. I was amazed at some of the things you did and some of the things that you shared. You know, I remember your post about swimming and almost drowning, and then this determination to swim and going back every day until you learn to swim. That's a pretty powerful idea you just highlighted there. That seems to be true. It's true. People can tell when you're being fake and when you're being genuine, and it's important to always be genuine. So it is a tradition here at Lifestyle by Design for my guests to leave the viewers with 3 action steps that they can implement into their lives right away to start living their dreams. What are the 3 action steps that you will offer?
Awesome question. Number one, find out what your core story is. When I say core story, what's something that if someone asked you, who are you, right? You can give them a non-traditional answer in 2 minutes. When people ask me who I am in 2 minutes, I give you that story about when I was 13. That would give you a very clear photo about who I am, what I stand for, and what I'm willing to contribute. What's your core story? And if you don't like your story, what's so awesome about story is that you can rewrite it. You can rewrite it, and you can create whatever you want. You can literally, I mean, if you don't like the story of your life, write something that empowers you. Write something that gets you up in the morning. Write something that excites you, and go after that. Right. So number one, come up with a core story, something in 2 minutes that you can start sharing with people. And after those 2 minutes, you can start to expand that, and you can start coming up with all these different stories, and you'll see that again, all these different people start to come in your life. Number two, stand gate. Stand at the gates of your mind. And if you don't take control of your mind, other people will. Other people are going to demand attention for your mind. And I want you to know that all those things that demand your attention will always be true. There's people at work, or people in my business, or people who I'm surrounding myself with, who come up with all these different excuses for why they won't do something, or why they don't want to move up to the next level. And it's always a reason that would always be true. It's always for something that would always be true. And if you actually decided for the first time that you were gonna actually take control of this thing, then I would challenge you to see what would come into your life. So I guess an action step for that is just like decide right now that for 30 minutes a day, no matter what happens, that you're gonna immerse yourself in something that's gonna add to the quality of your life and also your family's life. Maybe you won't do it for yourself, but maybe you'll do it for your family, right? And if you won't do it for your family, maybe you'll do it for someone else, right? So decide for 30 minutes a day that you're gonna immerse yourself in something, and decide when you're reading that you're gonna apply something right away. Don't delay it, right? And a true decision, the meaning of a true decision is that you take action right away. So every time I read something, if I say I'm gonna immerse myself, I need to take a action after I read something every single day. And action by action, guess what? Now you made 365 actions in a year. And I guarantee you, even if you grow 1%, you're better than you were last year. And that's exciting. That's a reason why, that's a reason worth living for.
That's true.
And number three, yeah. Number three, do something for your body every single day. Do something for your body every single day. in what I do and my clients and the people I get to surround myself with, I meet so many wealthy people, so many people who by society standards have everything, but they miss the point, only to miss the point. And I always told myself that I wasn't willing to have all this financial abundance if I left my body behind. I want to arrive with energy, not only energy, but energy to give. And when in life, you think about life, all it is energy. And if you're showing up at your relationships, in your family, in your work with no energy, then why are you showing up at all? Respect the people around you enough to invest in yourself, to invest in your body, and actually handle this thing for the first time and obliterate fear and start to feel good about yourself, feel good about the energy that you're portraying, start to feel maybe for some people it means they'll look better. People have all different types of reasons for why they want to do things for their body, whether it means eating or whether it means exercising. And it doesn't have to be going to the gym. I do not own a gym membership, but I'm probably fitter than a lot because I just use the things around me. I understand that I have a sidewalk outside. I understand that the beach is close by. I understand that I can sign up for the pool. I understand that, I can rent a bike. I understand that I can go hiking. You don't have to do the traditional thing. Just do something for your body, at least 10 minutes every single day. And I say, if you don't have 10 minutes, you don't have a life. So invest 10 minutes in your body every single day. Ideally more, but invest at least 10 minutes a day and make it a must. Anything you make a must is going to happen. Anything that you make it optional is not going to happen. And the way you make it real is by literally taking action as soon as we hang up. So that means working out for 10 minutes after we hang up. What that means is reading for 30 minutes after we hang up. And yeah, so if you do those three things, I think that next year will be a lot more exciting than last year.
Powerful, very powerful words of wisdom, and I agree with you. It would make those small things done on a consistent daily basis can have a huge impact at the end of 365 days, like you said. So I'm just going to read a couple more. There was another question here. What's the if you have a quick minute, what's the number one thing on your bucket list?
What's the number one thing on my bucket list?
Yes.
For what? For what, this year? For my lifetime? For
I guess your lifetime.
My lifetime. It's really simple for me. I committed to this. I committed to this probably 5 years ago, and I'm on track. And the reason why I'm on track is because I believe in exponential thinking. All the technologies that we see today, just to give you a framework for what I'm going to say, just a couple of years ago, people would say, oh, that's not going to happen in 2 years. Oh, that's not going to happen in 10 years. Oh, that's not going to happen in our lifetime. But what people don't understand is that they look at the curve of growth. They look at the curve of exponential thinking. If they look at the curve of compound effort, you'll start to see that how much is actually really possible in your lifetime. So I say you underestimate what you can do in a year. You overestimate what you can do in a year. You underestimate what you can do in your lifetime. So for me, it's impacting 1 billion people before. Before this body goes in the grave and onto its next journey. And that's what I'm committed to every single day. So that's my ultimate bucket list to say I did something when I was alive, to when I rest my head, to not wish for more time, and to go peacefully.
Okay. And there is also a note here for you. You can find Deepak Chopra on Periscope every day. Mike, who wrote it in, said he thinks he's addicted to Periscope.
Awesome. I'll check it out.
Okay. So, Pedro, I want to thank you very much for taking the time out and chatting with me tonight and sharing your experience and your wisdom and things that you've learned, you know, to help others live their best life and so that they can design a life that they love. Looking at you and understanding, and your life is an inspiration. You know, you've done so much. I do want to mention one of the great things that I see you doing is that before we go, I was like, I have to mention this because, I mean, this is the reason why you even got on my radar. I saw a picture of you on Facebook, and you were running the New York City Marathon, but you were guiding someone who was blind. And as it turned out, that gentleman he's a Special Olympics athlete. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, he's a 6-time gold medalist.
Okay. And you were guiding him, whether he was, you know, a gold medalist or not. I believe that is so selfless of you. And I thought that was just amazing. You know, it's amazing in the fact that you're doing 26.2 miles, but here you are taking your time to help someone, you know, accomplish this goal, and someone who can't see, you know, well, not with the eyes, but he could see with his heart, and he knew he was going to finish that, you know, and I think that was such a brave and selfless act. And I honor you. I honor you for living your life and exercising your personal power and being an inspiration and an example and a role model, you know, to those who have eyes to see, those who have eyes to see you doing that, and ears to hear your story, and understanding that they too can be like you in their own way. They too can exercise their personal power. So I thank you for spending your time with me tonight and talking a bit. I wish you much success in your life. And, you know, maybe you'll come back on another time. So thank you. Thank you very much.
So welcome, Margaret. It was my privilege. I hope I was able to add some value. And yeah, thanks so much, guys. Talk to you guys soon.
Okay, take care and have a good night. And thank you, everyone, and for logging on. Have a good night.